Imagine a grand castle filled with flickering candlelight and hushed whispers. Inside, a young royal child sits quietly, moving and speaking differently. In a world obsessed with perfection, their difference is a silent threat. Hidden behind velvet curtains, these children born with Down syndrome lived in secrecy, a haunting truth erased from royal history. Down syndrome is more than a label. It's a unique genetic story written in the threads of life itself. In essence, most of us carry 46 chromosomes, the tiny structures within our cells holding the instructions that make us who we are. But for individuals with Down syndrome, there's an extra copy of chromosome 21, 47 in total. This additional chromosome brings with it distinctive features and developmental differences. For royal families obsessed with perfection, a child with Down syndrome was seen as a scandal, often hidden away or erased from records, their lives confined to secrecy and silence behind closed doors. Meet Nerissa and Catherine, the lost royal sisters. Nerissa, born 1919, and Catherine bowes-lyon, born 1926, were first cousins of Queen Elizabeth II through the Queen Mother's family line. Both sisters were born with severe developmental disabilities, likely including Down syndrome or similar intellectual impairments. They never learned to speak and were reported to have mental ages as young as 3 to 6 years old. Despite their close royal ties, the sisters were institutionalized in 1941 at the Royal Oldswood Hospital in Surrey, an asylum specializing in intellectual disabilities and mental health needs. This was a deliberate decision by their family, led by their mother Fenella Bowes-lyon, to keep them hidden away from the public and royal spotlight. Their institutionalization meant that for decades Nerissa and Catherine lived out their lives isolated from family life and society. Official genealogical publications like Burke's Peerage falsely recorded both as deceased many years earlier, Nerissa in 1940, Catherine in 1961, effectively erasing them from the public record and royal history. Nerissa died at Oldswood in 1986, and Catherine lived until 2014. Their existence as hidden royals was only uncovered when a newspaper investigation in 1987 revealed the truth, shocking the British public and inspiring questions about the royal family's treatment of relatives with disabilities. Despite this, personal visits and family contact were reportedly infrequent during their lives, and their burial arrangements were modest and overlooked until public outcry led to proper recognition. Multiple other relatives with similar disabilities were also institutionalized, including their cousins born to Fenella's sister, highlighting a possible familial genetic link and the aristocracy's tendency to isolate disabled members to preserve their public image. The story of Nerissa and Catherine remains a tragic example of stigma, secrecy, and neglect experienced by people with disabilities, even those born into privilege, and sparked debate about historical attitudes toward disability in elite families. Nerissa Bowes-lyon's existence was cloaked in silence for decades. Sent away at a young age to the Royal Oldswood Hospital, her life became a shadow play. This was not just an institution, it was a physical and emotional exile. Picture endless days in dimly lit rooms, the smell of antiseptic mingling with heavy wool blankets. Few knew her real name. Official records coldly declared her deceased. The weight of this invisible death pressed on her quiet heart. Visits from family were rare and brief, loaded with unspoken grief and shame. Her life became a guarded secret, hidden so effectively that even to this day, many have only recently learned she existed. How does a family so tied to history consign a child to oblivion? What wounds did this invisibility leave? Pause to imagine that loss. Being forgotten while your name is whispered like a ghost in royal history, alive but invisible. Nerissa lived until 1986, Catherine until 2014. Their stories emerged only when journalists dug through the shadows to uncover the truth decades later, sparking public outrage. What does it say about a society where power and perfection eclipsed familial love? Princess Alexandra of Prussia, quiet inclusion behind the throne. Born in 1915, Alexandra entered the world amid grandeur and history. From the start, her family knew she was different, not for lack of love, but for the unmistakable signs of a condition few understood, Down syndrome. While many royals hid children with disabilities behind locked doors or distant institutions, Alexandrine's parents chose a different path. They kept her close, cradling their daughter within their household, giving her whispers of inclusion amid the rigid demands of royalty. Within the family circle, she was lovingly nicknamed Adini, a small light of warmth in a world of ceremony and duty. But Alexandrine's life was delicately balanced, cherished for who she was, yet shielded from the public duties her siblings carried. She attended the Troopers Special School in Jena, a rare haven of learning for children with disabilities in the early 20th century. Imagine the schoolrooms where she explored art and music, worlds blooming quietly in her own way, far from the public's eyes. Upon finishing school, Alexandrine returned home, her days marked by the rhythms of family life and the gentle care of her devoted nurse, Selma Bowes. Though she rarely stepped into the public eye, fragments of her life survived in family photographs and postcards, subtle testaments to her place in the royal story. Despite her family's love and efforts, Alexandrine's condition meant she was excluded from royal duties and public events. The great halls that echoed with the footsteps of princes and princesses remained hushed around her presence. The world beyond those walls demanded perfection. Alexandrine was loved privately, but lived quietly, a princess without a throne. Her confirmation in 1934 was a rare moment of inclusion, joining her sister among family and faith, an emblem of belonging in a life otherwise marked by constraint. Princess Alexandrine lived to 65, outliving many early expectations for those with Down syndrome during her time. She passed away in 1980, laid to rest in the family crypt near the Hohenzollern Castle, a final homage to her place in the royal lineage. Her story, unlike many others, was not one of erasure or exile, but of quiet inclusion, the gentle acknowledgement that difference need not mean invisibility. Alexandrine's life challenges us to rethink history's harsh judgments and see beyond public facades to the love, dignity, and humanity beneath. And de Gaulle, a daughter loved and remembered. Picture this, a cold January morning in 1928, in the city of Trier, Germany, a place marked by the cold bite of winter and the restless whispers of a continent still healing from World War I. In a quiet hospital room, the soft cries of a newborn break the silence, and de Gaulle has entered the world. The air is thick with worry as doctors exchange hushed tones about this child's uncertain future. And was born with Down syndrome, a condition few understood and many feared. Yet, within the walls of the de Gaulle family home, where heavy curtains shielded the family from the storm outside, a fiercely protective love took root, a love that would carry and through a world that often shunned difference. And was the youngest daughter of General Charles de Gaulle, the resolute French military leader who would later become president, and his devoted wife Yvonne. Her birth was accompanied by concern. Her mother had been injured shortly before Anne's arrival, and medical professionals delivered guarded prognosis. But Charles and Yvonne refused to consign and to a lonely fate. Instead, she was embraced, nurtured in their care, protected fiercely from a world that often equated disability with shame. Imagine Charles de Gaulle, known for his discipline and stoicism, transformed in the tender glow of fatherhood. Within the family's quiet refuge, he'd kneel, playfully dancing for and drawing laughter with exaggerated gestures and silly sounds that only a father's love could inspire, and could speak only one word clearly, Papa. But that single word was a universe of meaning, an unbreakable bond between father and daughter. When the weight of command pressed heavily on Charles, Anne's presence was a balm, a flicker of light cutting through the shadows of war and duty. The de Gaulle family built walls not just of stone, but of love and protection. They guarded Anne from the harsh eyes and cruel whispers of society, creating private gardens and sheltered spaces where she could roam freely, safe from judgment. During the terrible years of World War II, when Nazi forces swept across France and persecuted disabled individuals, Yvonne fled with and through perilous terrain, a mother's fierce devotion shielding her child from unimaginable danger. Anne's life, though full of love, was heartbreakingly brief. She died of pneumonia at 20 years old, leaving a silence that echoed through the de Gaulle household. Yet from grief came action. Yvonne founded the Foundation and de Gaulle, a hospital dedicated to children with disabilities. This sanctuary of care became a beacon of hope, a testament to a family's love transformed into lasting compassion. Charles carried a photograph of and always, a silent talisman of the daughter who touched his soul. In a moment of historic danger, that very photograph is said to have deflected a bullet aimed at him, forever linking Anne's memory to the fate of France itself. While the stories of British and Prussian royalties are telling, they represent a part of a worldwide pattern. Across continents, royal and noble families confronted similar fears. In Asia, Africa, and the Americas, traditions and expectations often forced children with visible or intellectual disabilities into obscurity, whether through remote isolation, exile, or cultural rituals that veiled their existence. Every culture grappled with the tension between love for a child and protecting family honor. These unspoken truths carved deep scars, shaping how disability was perceived and handled for generations. Why do we care, so many years later, about royal children like Bowes-lyon, Princess Alexandra, or Gaulle? Because remembering their lives is an act of justice. It honors human dignity denied for far too long. It teaches us that power and privilege do not grant immunity from fear and prejudice. Far from it. Their stories reveal how societal pressures can distort love, forcing families to hide what they cherish most. But if we wipe them away from history, we risk repeating those mistakes. Every whispered secret is a call to speak louder. Every shadow is an invitation to shine a light. Today, we live in a world where disability rights and inclusion have advanced tremendously, but the fight is far from over. Globally, individuals with Down syndrome and other disabilities still face barriers, limited access to education, healthcare disparities, social stigma, and economic challenges. The royal histories remind us that these struggles are not new or isolated. They are part of a long pattern rooted in misunderstanding and fear. But they also inspire hope, showing us how far we have come and how essential it is to continue pushing for change. Around the world, activists, families, and individuals with Down syndrome are reclaiming narratives. People like Madeleine Stewart, a model who uses her platform to celebrate diversity, or the countless educators and caregivers who champion inclusion every day, embody the strength that was hidden in past generations. Their stories ripple outward, reshaping perceptions and building communities that welcome difference as a source of collective strength. These royal children, once invisible, are now beacons guiding us toward a more compassionate society. They remind us to see beyond appearance and value each person fully. Challenge stigma wherever it exists, in homes, schools, or governments. Advocate for equal opportunity, access, and respect. Celebrate differences as essential to our shared human story. Their lives ask a question that echoes across centuries. What legacy will we leave for future generations? No crown, no title, no pedigree should ever silence a child's voice or dim the light of their life. Nerissa, Catherine, Alexandra, and countless others born into secrecy and silence deserve to be remembered, not just as royal curiosities, but as full human beings whose value shines as brightly as any monarch's crown. The past has many lessons, but this is perhaps the most important. Every life matters. Every story deserves to be told.